MTN Noon News.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on your MTN statewide news this Tuesday. I'm Janelle Slade. Well, breaking news this noon as state health authorities announce another 80 confirmed COVID-19 cases across Montana. 55 of those in Yellowstone County. The latest cluster, a care facility in Billings where 43 residents and 15 staff members tested positive, sending 2 residents to the hospital and the facility into quarantine. Canyon Creek Memory Care Community at 1785 Majestic Lane announced the results this morning. Test results are pending for another 9 residents and 15 staff members. State and county health officials are actively working to trace the contacts of all 58 individuals. Well, both the state and Yellowstone County smashing records as the total active cases reaches 540. And Yellowstone County surpasses Gallatin County in total cases and in total active cases. Yellowstone County at 199, Missoula County 58, Gallatin County with 54 and 50 active cases in Bighorn County today. Health authorities say the spread and testing has been difficult to manage. Well, the U.S. has recorded more than 300,000 new coronavirus cases so far in July alone. Now, this leads to a large increase in hospitalizations across the nation. Chris Martinez has the latest details.
Almost 8,700 Texans are in the hospital with COVID-19, including single mom Patty Peterson.
It feels like someone's stabbing you in your side.
She's been in a critical care unit since last week.
Everyone thinks it's blown out of proportion until you're the person laying in CCU who has no contact with anybody and you're helpless.
In Texas, hospitalizations have more than doubled in the last 2 weeks. Arizona hospitals are at 89% capacity. And in Florida, in the last 2 weeks, hospitalizations are up 40%.
We are still knee-deep in the first wave of this. We went up, never came down to baseline, and now we're surging back up.
In California, hospitalizations are up almost 89% since Memorial Day. About a third of the hospitalizations are here in Los Angeles County, and about 25% of those are among young people ages 18 to 40. Health officials blame the rise on increased socialization.
We've had a lot of people disregard the very practices that allowed us to slow the spread.
And there is growing concern among leading scientists that the coronavirus may travel farther than previously thought in tiny airborne particles that can linger in the air for hours, especially indoors.
It's clear that one person could infect people over much more than 6 feet.
Researchers emphasize masks help reduce the risk. Chris Martinez, CBS News, Los Angeles.
More than 200 scientists around the globe are urging the World Health Organization to reconsider its guidance on how the virus spreads. They say improved ventilation systems may be needed in schools, businesses, and other indoor spaces. Well, it's time now to check in on the weather scene. And Ed, it's really not looking much better on the weather scene.
No, we've got some serious concerns as we get into the afternoon. Take a look at the map. It shows you the instability in the atmosphere, or one of the ingredients we need to get strong to severe storms going. You see it's pretty widespread here as of midday, but by this afternoon, we're really concentrating on eastern Montana, and the Storm Prediction Center of the National Weather Service is reflecting that with an enhanced area of strong to severe possibilities across the eastern plains. That's about as high as we typically see it around here. Temperatures are going to be warming up to the 70s, 80s, even low 90s today with that risk of strong to severe storms through the afternoon. And we'll see a little cooler day tomorrow before a hot weekend. Give you all the details on that coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, thanks so much, Ed. Now, 21-year-old man involved in an overnight shooting in the Billings Heights died at a hospital. The victim was shot in the chest just after 11:30 last night on the 600 block of Samuel Court. Lieutenant Brandon Woolley with the Billings Police Department says a 52-year-old man described as the shooter was interviewed and released. Detectives are trying to determine if the man who was shot was the same man reported as intoxicated on Main Street a few minutes earlier. Investigators believe the intoxicated male and deceased were the same person. This is currently classified as a homicide as the investigation moves forward. Ravalli County authorities are searching for a suspect they say set a building on fire, killing 3 people. The fire was started around 2 o'clock Monday morning. Along with the 3 deaths, a 4th person suffered severe injuries jumping out of a second-story window to escape. The woman was taken to the hospital and is recovering at this time. No, authorities do not know who set the building on fire. A man accused of lighting his dog on fire in March appeared in Lincoln County District Court on felony charges yesterday. Domingo Palafox pleaded not guilty to 2 counts of tampering with witnesses and to 1 count of aggravated animal cruelty. Percy, a 1-year-old puppy, was able to run off, saving his own life. He was picked up by Pet Connection Rescue and Sanctuary out of Libby, where he underwent rehabilitation for 6 weeks and since then has been adopted. He is now living a happy and healthy life. A jury trial is set for November 17th in Libby. Well, Democrat Senate candidate Steve Bullock just broke a state fundraising record. Montana's governor raised $7.7 million in the past 3 months. Since entering the race on March 9th, Bullock has raised a total of $11 million. He's challenging Republican incumbent Steve Daines. Now, Daines has totaled $9 million overall and still had about $5.8 million left in his campaign account. Daines has not yet released his fundraising totals for that same quarter. Well, the Keystone XL pipeline cannot move forward with construction while its case goes through the appeals process. That ruling came down from the U.S. Supreme Court yesterday afternoon. It's a win for the Billings-based Northern Plains Resource Council, which was a plaintiff in the original lawsuit looking to block the pipeline. Senator Daines expressed his disappointment with the ruling, saying the pipeline would provide jobs and revenue for Montana. And the Keystone ruling wasn't the only major setback for the oil industry. Yesterday, a federal judge ruled the controversial Dakota Access Pipeline must be shut down and emptied of oil by August 5th. The judge says the pipeline cannot be in operation until an environmental impact study is done, which could take more than a year. North Dakota officials estimate shutting down the pipeline will result in the loss of more than $300 million in yearly tax revenue. The project's developer plans to file a motion to stay the decision. Well, this week, Flathead County first responders will train with the Montana National Guard's 83rd Weapons of Mass Destruction Civil Support Team from Helena. The purpose of this training is to prepare local law enforcement for emergency hazardous situations that would normally overwhelm local departments. These exercises will also refine and perfect relationships between different law enforcement agencies and have been prepping for 18 months. Because people are traveling to these training locations, everyone is taking extra safety precautions because of coronavirus. Training will take place around the Flathead Community College, Whitefish, and Creston, away from the general public. Well, we're now learning more about who got money under the Paycheck Protection Program. Around 5 million businesses have been approved for loans so far, totaling about $520 billion. The top industry, healthcare, followed by professional services and then construction. However, several company names on the recipient list weren't expected. A clothing line by Kanye West, political groups, and even high-dollar hedge funds. The new application period for PPP loans started yesterday. It runs until August 8th. Well, thousands of international college students may have to leave the U.S. if their universities go to online classes only. The State Department says it will not issue visas to students enrolled in schools that are fully online for the fall semester. Many colleges have already made that decision in response to the coronavirus pandemic. Foreign students may have trouble returning home because many came from countries prohibiting travel from the states. Still ahead on your noon news, the oldest living veteran in Montana is laid to rest. We'll share his story. The time now is 12:09, but first, meteorologist Ed McIntosh is next with your statewide weather forecast.
Storm Tracker weather starts now with meteorologist Ed McIntosh.
And welcome back to the noon news. Temperatures are 60s, 70s, then we have 80s once we start getting into the eastern plains, and temperatures could really take off once we start getting into the later afternoon hours, and we could easily see some 90-degree readings. So we've got plenty of heat. We showed you the instability in the atmosphere, plus there's plenty of available moisture. We start looking at dew points here hitting the upper 50s to 60s, and it just is an indication that the atmosphere is primed for severe weather to develop through the afternoon. This big area, anywhere from Great Falls Falls, Lewistown, especially once we get into the eastern plains over towards the Dakotas, could see some strong storms through the afternoon and early evening hours. Here's how things look for us now as we look for some of these showers, isolated thunderstorms starting to move from western Montana. And this is going to gain more energy as it continues to move across the eastern plains for us today. We'll look for the southwesterly wind to continue to pull up a bit more moisture. Plus, we're tapping into Gulf moisture as well. So everything's coming together. The blue arrows here indicate the winds, but you'll see these little flickers off on your screen here in the eastern plains. That shows we're already starting to see some lightning strikes. So as this cold front sails across the region today, it's going to create some areas of hail, strong winds, and then cooler temperatures for tomorrow. The warming begins as early as Thursday across the area, so the high pressure area starts to build in. So we're going to see some quick changes here as we get through the next several days, and those temperatures will move a bit up and down. For today, our bigger problem is these areas where these strong severe storms could develop. So as we make it through the afternoon today, here we are with a chance of showers and thunderstorms, Lewistown north towards Havre, Great Falls. We're going to be continuing to watch that move into the eastern plains, and notice temperatures will go from 60s, 70s, 80s to 90s, and where all of those thunderstorms start to collide with the hotter and moister air into the eastern plains, that's where we start seeing that larger threat of showers and thunderstorms. You notice a lot of it up around the Fort Peck area, and then continuing to move out of the region as we get through the evening hours. Once it does, it gets much quieter for us. Temperatures will be in the 40s and 50s for most of the overnight lows. During the afternoon and evening hours, we could see some wind develop down the east slopes of the Rockies, in addition to the winds that are going to develop around some of these thunderstorms. And then tomorrow, with a low pressure area to our north, we're going to be looking at temperatures anywhere from the 70s to low 80s by the later afternoon hours, generally with sunshine and light winds. So if we can just make it through this afternoon and this evening, we definitely will see some stronger storms develop. But once we get past that period, we're going to be into a little bit cooler temperatures, and then we'll see a general warm up that'll start to develop once we start getting beyond that. So here's how things look for us. Kalispell, Missoula, looking at temperatures in the 60s, 70s, and then some 80s. So as we get into the extended outlook, we'll look at the chance of a shower or thunderstorm decreasing with a lot more sunshine. Temperatures in the 70s and then 80s. A risk of a shower or thunderstorm around Helena, Great Falls today, but some of those storms could be strong to severe. Butte and Bozeman also looking at some possibility of storms, especially around Bozeman. We got an early start on it there. Temperatures up into the 80s by the time we start getting into the early part of the weekend. And temperatures around Glendive and Billings will also continue to heat up with readings into the 80s, 90s today, and then cooling down and warming back up as we get into the next few days. So especially for this afternoon, watch for changing sky conditions, especially east of the Continental Divide. Take safe cover if you see storms approach. There's a look at the weather. Back to you, Janelle.
All right, thanks so much, Ed. Well, the oldest living veteran in Montana was laid to rest yesterday. Ernest Hoffman was 106 years old. He was buried by the Vietnam War Memorial Wall in Bozeman. MTN's John Miller was at that service.
Hey! Hey!
In Bozeman, John Miller, MTN News.
And Ranch Report from the Montana Ag Network.
Hi everybody, it's time for your Farm and Ranch News.
Well, it looks like U.S. beef and pork exports trended a little bit lower in May, due in large part to temporary interruptions in slaughter and processing because of COVID-19. The U.S. Meat Export Federation's president and chief executive officer Dan Hallstrom says that beef exports actually dropped well below year-ago levels and recorded the lowest monthly volume in 10 years, while pork exports remained higher, he says, than a year ago, but were still the lowest since October of 2019.
The results showed the beef export side was down significantly, down 33% versus a year ago. And the pork export sales results also showed an impact with the lowest level since October of 2019, albeit we did still show growth of about 12% year on year for the month of May.
Now the good news is, he says that red meat production has rebounded significantly here in recent weeks, and that he expects beef and pork exports to regain momentum in the second half of 2020. And he says this is especially true in the Asian destinations that are a little bit further along in easing COVID-19 related restrictions, while demand in the Western Hemisphere markets may take a little bit longer to rebound. In the meantime, though, for the complete report, you can visit them online at usmef.org. Well, stay with us. We'll have more ag news right after this. Agriculture is seeking public comment on the transition to RFID-only ear tags. USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service wants the public's input on the proposal where APHIS would only approve RFID as the official ear tag for use in interstate movement of cattle that are required to be identified by the traceability regulations. USDA says a transition to RFID tags would help support APHIS's ongoing efforts to increase animal disease traceability by more accurately and rapidly allowing animal health officials to know where affected and at-risk animals are located. APHIS is also seeking comments on a proposed timeline for implementation. Public comments, they say, will be accepted through the Federal Register until October 5th of 2020. And finally today, the National Industrial Hemp Council, along with the Hemp Industries Association, has entered into an agreement to look into the possibility of establishing a marketing checkoff program for hemp. Now, industry insiders say the two organizations will form a working group with representatives from across the industry to discuss the details on how a hemp checkoff program should be structured and operate. The working group's effort, they say, would guide the eventual proposal to the U.S. Department of Agriculture that will include industry analysis, the justification for the program objectives, and of course the impact on small businesses. The new Farm Bill legalized hemp production in the United States and was signed into law by President Trump after the legislation made it through both chambers of Congress. And of course, this region, including Montana, continues to lead the entire nation in overall hemp production. Well, that's a look at your farm and ranch news. Have a great day.
Thanks, Russell. And Ed here with our last look at weather this noon.
Yeah, we've had showers and thunderstorms in western Montana through the morning hours, and the storms will gain intensity as they continue to move across the eastern plains through this afternoon, especially once we get to around Lewistown, Havre, off towards the east. We could see a strong squall line continue to move up into northeastern Montana, and additional storms could create periods of gusty winds along with this as well. Strong winds, heavy rain, frequent lightning, even a funnel cloud or tornado is possible with this as it continues to swing out of the area. And then it gets quieter overnight and warming temperatures to the 70s and 80s by the end of the day tomorrow.
Thanks so much, Ed. Stay safe. We will see you tomorrow.